Hi, welcome back to Surviving with Sass. Today I want to talk about healing. How does one begin to heal? And when do you know that you're healed? Are you ever really healed? So we'll start with how does one begin to heal? For me, it was unintentional. Music was a huge part of my healing. Different songs along the way spoke to my soul. They encouraged me to think about it, sometimes dwell upon it. That's where a lot of healing was for me. I would also accidentally have a conversation with someone else who divulged that they were a survivor. And I would feel this connection to them. It was like, it's one of my people, or you're part of the club, But I know it's a sad club, but it's where I found comfort. This is kind of a funny story, but my shower, I call it the portal to the universe. And sometimes when I shower, I don't know if I just find peace or, I'm all comfortable because it's warm and cozy and I start to relax, but my mind opens and I would get thoughts or ideas, and I would feel like I needed to talk to certain people about something, like talking to my brother about what had happened to me. The first time I ever even had that idea was in the shower, and I just thought I needed to share it with him. Like, would he view me as a better person if he knew why I am the way I am? If I made the mistakes I made because I was screwed up, not just because I wanted to be an idiot. I think so many things came to me in the shower. Things I needed to ask my mom before she died. And yeah, there was just a lot of healing in those moments. Another form of healing that came to me unintentionally was self-defense. I took self-defense classes as an exercise plan. I started Krav Maga in, I don't remember what year that was. Maybe 2010. I feel like these classes were the thing that really kickstarted my healing. I had an excellent instructor who was very intuitive about the needs of his students as far as self-defense training goes. I took his classes for 5 years, and then I decided to go and get certified to teach them myself as he was quitting and moving away. So I did so. There's a funny story here. I went to Carbondale to get my training, Carbondale, Colorado. And the first day of training, I was accidentally punched in the nose because I obviously didn't have my hands up like I was supposed to. The man who punched me was a 65-year-old police officer, and he hit the floor with me and was so distraught. I wasn't even sure what happened to me, but he knew that my nose cracked when he hit me, and he felt horrible. He said that I was the first woman out of his entire career as a police officer that he ever hit. So that made for an interesting training, as I still had 2 whole days left with a broken nose, and I wasn't about to give it up, because I had paid $700 to come do this training. But Krav Maga was an excellent opportunity to heal and learn things about my experiences. There were several classes where I had to get past triggers that I didn't even know I had. There was one where people would hold your wrist and you just had to break free. And the first time someone grabbed my wrist and wouldn't let go, I ended up teary a little bit. I was able to get out of it, and after doing that several times, I moved past that. But it was just a totally unexpected trigger. Another one was being pinned on my back, a little more dramatic than having your wrist grabbed, but being pinned on my back with my hands up in the air like I was when I was raped in college. It was the exact same position, and he put me in that position, and my instructor put me in that position intentionally to work past the full, fears that I was working with. One of my best friends was with me in that class, and she was the first person to be on top of me in that position. And it means so much that she was there and she knew me, and she cried with me the whole time. I can't even tell you how much that means to me. And then they also had another friend from class who was he probably was 240 pounds. And they had him on top of me as well. And I was able to get free, but he was not giving up. He was relentless. And the instructor got down next to my head and just screamed, you fight, over and over. And until I heard him, I was definitely starting into that adrenaline dump and, the panic. So I was going to freeze, I'm afraid. But with them telling me, I realized, I didn't have to freeze. And my body, the muscle memory kicked in, and I fought, and I got him off of me. And it was a huge accomplishment that I never expected to happen. Didn't see it coming. And it changed my life. Pretty amazing. So back to the things that helped me heal. One was when my daughter turned 6 years old, and I saw the innocence in, I guess when you go through something like this and you blamed yourself, and you were only 6, but you saw yourself as older, I guess because you'd given up your innocence. It had been taken from you, and you saw yourself as changed, I guess. It's complicated, but when I saw my daughter at 6 years old, I realized the youth and the innocence, and I was shocked that I survived that, looking back at it. So as I speak about this, I get these fears or insecurities, and I have to point them out. I was told by my pastor, who I will be interviewing soon in another podcast, but he told me that to be sure when you're doing these podcasts to operate from the present and not from your fears. Your fears will come and kind of wreck what you're trying to do. So I loved that. I loved hearing that. And so I'm going to share this fear that I have raising up right now. I fear that people will think I'm making a mountain out of a molehill. But in reality, this has affected my entire life. People might say, oh, he just touched you, He just touched your body and you're fine. Why do you have all this trauma? Why are you 52 years old and still struggling with this? Well, I don't think I am. I think I'm sharing it with children who are going through it. And I don't think it was nothing. It truly affected my whole being, my physical, spiritual, emotional, all of those things were affected. And it is a huge deal. And I don't ever want to see it happen to another child, although I know it happens every day. So, I feel called to do these talks to help people. So basically, when I get these fears and I think about people thinking that I'm making a mountain out of a molehill, I just think, well, fuck you, don't listen. So that's where I'm at. I'm moving on. Thank you for listening to my fear. And we'll get back to the 6-year-old. When I was 6, somehow I was able to separate this negative part of my life from the normal parts of my life. And when I was an adolescent and learning about sexuality and feelings that I had for boys, in my case, I didn't compare sexuality or sexual encounters, and I just mean kissing as an adolescent, and things like that, hugging, kissing, holding hands, all those fun things that you learn about. I did not make a connection. They were totally separate to me. This one thing was a negative, horrifying thing that I was going through, and the rest of it was my real life. And I'm so grateful that I was able to do that. The only times it really affected me was when I knew he was coming over to spend the night with my brother, or their family was going to be on vacation with us. I dreaded things then, but other than that, I was able to just move forward. Now, when I got older and my daughter turned 6 and I, like I said, I saw her youth and innocence, then it started to affect me more. It started to creep into my life and to kind of rear its head. And, when a person has PTSD, which I am diagnosed with, I think that, for a while you can cover things up and just, sweep them under the rug and move on. But after a while, it starts rearing its head all by itself, and it can wreck your world if you don't deal with it at the time. So that's what I was doing. Sometimes, like I said earlier, I would dwell on a memory, and to me, that's a good thing. I know people said, why do you dwell on it? Why do you keep beating it? It's like beating a dead horse. Well, that was me, in hindsight, that was me working through it and thinking about it until I put it in its rightful place. Sometimes I cried, sometimes I got mad, but I worked my way through it until I was almost desensitized to it. I think that's where my healing is. There were so many times that stick in my memory that will still raise their ugly heads. Like, I'll just share some of my more explicit experiences with you. One of them was when I was 7 years old, I believe, 7 or 8, something like that. And we were on a fishing trip, and I was hiding in the fish house. And I don't know why we always played hide and seek, and I don't know why I always fell for it, but I did. Anyway, I was hiding in the fish house behind the freezers, and he was always the one to come find me. And so he came to find me, and he found me in the fish house, and he started doing things to me there. He put his hand down the front of my pants and made me give him a blowjob, which, at 7 years old to be learning to give blowjobs is truly appalling to me. That, that kind of brings out the reality of what I was living with. But now when I go back, like we went to Canada, and the first time we took the kids, we went in the fish house to watch them clean the fish, and the kids wanted to learn how and see what they do. And that smell of the fish house hit me like a ton of bricks. I didn't expect it to be a trauma, a trigger. And it was. And I had to really get a hold of myself and try to behave normally with my children who were learning, some wonderful little thing about childhood and about going on these fishing trips with Grandma and Grandpa. And I wasn't about to ruin that for them, but inside, I was a wreck. So I had to do some thinking about that and understanding why did I have this humongous fear response from the smell of the fish house. And then, I realized and worked my way through it. But another one was swimming at the high school pool when I was little, when we lived at our first residence. And I was swimming in the pool. Both of our families were there, and he swam up behind me as I was reaching the ladder in the deep part and slipped his fingers up into my swimsuit, the crotch area. And I was mortified and terrified. I was underwater, for one thing, and it scared me to death. How do you not gasp underwater? I don't know, but I was okay as far as that goes. But I was so scared that somebody saw, but at the same time, so hoped that somebody saw. But nobody did. And that seems to be the way he operated. He was very sneaky while still being right on the edge. And to me, that's, he said, when my brother and I confronted him, he said it was childhood curiosity gone wrong. Well, that is way fucking wrong, if you ask me. That's not childhood curiosity. It's grooming behavior. It's wrong, and it's horrible, and it wrecked my world for a long time. And I hope he knows that. And I say I'm not vengeful, but I do want him to know, and I do want him to work on it himself. I shouldn't be the only one that has to work on it. And I'm sure if you're someone who's been through this, you'll understand what I'm talking about. So another incident was in the van on a trip to Florida where both families went. The four of us kids were back on the bed. We had this groovy big old van. It was a big old Chevy van. And it had a bed in the back, and my dad had built all this amazing shelving and drawers and stuff underneath. And the bed had a fur blanket on the top of it, and it was groovy, like big time groovy. But anyway, we were all four laying back there on the bed. And of course, he ends up laying right next to me. And my parents are in the front. There's another adult in the front, in the middle seat there. And he does this. He puts his hand in my pants on this trip. And I just so wanted someone to notice. But then again, was too scared to say anything. And I don't understand why. I wish I did. I can hear the psychology of it. I can hear what people tell me as to why I accepted it and did it. But, yeah, if I could just go back. Anyway, the majority of times that this occurred was in my own bedroom at home. And it was most weekends when he would spend the night, or they would come over, or, whatever was going on. He made it a point to wait till everybody went to sleep and sneak upstairs. And, one time as we were a little bit older, I don't know, I must have been 12, my mom caught him going upstairs and told him to get back downstairs. And she told me that later. And I just clammed up, but I knew what he was doing. And she had no clue. I had other friends there, and she thought he was just sneaking up to hang out, and flirt with the girls. When in reality, she saved me from a night of dread. Yeah. Anyway, back to the healing conversation. I think there was a point at which I knew I was on the bright side of healing. What does that mean? That I feel like I was out of all the darkness and life was looking brighter from the inside. There was always brightness in my life, but it was all coming from the outside, from the people around me. But inside was mostly darkness. I was about 35 years old when I started doing Krav Maga, is when I started to feel brighter. And I would start hearing songs, and I told my husband this once when I heard a John Denver song. Annie's song is what it was called. And when I heard it, instead of feeling triggered or feeling like this terror feeling, which sometimes I felt from songs from the 70s, I felt this wonderful little calm, sunny memory that I had when I was, I must have been 4 or 5. I loved John Denver my whole life, but I was just tiny, and I remember curling up in our living room. The living room and the family room were different things, and you didn't go in the living room unless you were having company, fancy company. And so it had white carpet, and the couch was this super light shade of green, and you just didn't go in there because you were going to get it dirty and you were going to get in trouble. But anyway, I snuck in there and fell asleep with John Denver playing in my bedroom. I could hear it down the hall, and it was Annie's song, and just the sweetest little memory, and it just popped out, and I hadn't had any like that. The only memories I really had surfaced from childhood were negative. So what a wonderful thing. I told my husband I felt like I must be starting to heal because I'm starting to get sweet memories, and it felt great. So that kind of shows me, how you know you are healing. Like, when do you know that you're healing? And I think that's when I started to know. And I started to feel empowered, like nobody could mess with me now, which is, of course, ridiculous. I realize I'm not a real badass, but I still, feel like I would take care of myself, and I want to teach other people to take care of themselves, especially children, but also adults. And so then the question of, can you actually be completely healed? I believe you can, yes. I believe you work through it, and you're living your life happy, doing the best you can, and loving the people you love. To me, that's healing. So it's out there. You just got to work at it sometimes. And I'm here for you. Thanks for listening. And remember to hit the like button and subscribe if you like what you hear.